Hi, this is Joe Tate, and you're listening to the Sports Fix.
Sports Fix listeners, do you tweet? So do we. So tweet with us 24/7 at the Sports Fix CLE.
Business owners and professionals, do you want to take your business, your product, your team, your event to the next level? You want to advertise right here with the Sports Fix. Our listeners are among the most loyal listeners, terrestrial or internet. The Sports Fix universe is not only the radio show, but tens of thousands of fans on Facebook and Twitter. Email me, Jerry Myers, thesportsfix@AOL.com. That's thesportsfix@AOL.com. And let me help you swing for the fences and hit it out of the park right here on the Sports Fix.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Fantasy Jocks. Looking to upgrade your league trophy? Check out fantasyjocks.com for championship belts, rings, trophies, and more.
Live in Ohio, it's time to get your fix. The Sports Fix.
There we go. Let's get this bad boy running. Welcome in. Crank me up a little bit. Welcome into the Sports Fix, you guys. Here we are off and running. Tuesday edition of the show here. Man, I'm not going to lie. I kind of feel like I've told you guys this before around Christmas time. I'm not going to lie. I kind of feel like it's that last day of vacation. Of course, I'm off the next couple of days here doing some stuff here with the family, but I'm not going to lie. Again, third time I've said that. I can tell no lies, like George Washington. But I'm going to do my best here. We're going to have a fun show. I'm just having some fun. But I'm definitely looking at the clock on the wall going, boy, man, summer vacation here when school gets out. Spring break, whatever you want to call it. So, but hey, that's a few hours from now, and we've got a lot of work to do in between now and then. So I give you my word that I'm going to give you my best until then, and then I'm going to hit the bricks. But let's have some fun. We've got a lot of things going on today here as we've got to cram 3 days worth of Sports Fix into it today. Mike Brandenberry is going to be in the house pretty early on in today's show. Dr. Football's here. So as I said, a lot to do. Let's do it here. Jeff Gorman's off today. He'll be back on Friday at the end of the week. Eddie Jansen will be here Friday. Looking at the guys that are usually here in the middle of the week. Dan Wismar won't be back until Monday, but we're here today. It's Tuesday. We're live. We're off and running, baby. Let's do the Sports Fix thing. Welcome in, you guys, to the Sports Fix across the Sports Fix Radio Network, live at noon. If you join us each and every weekday here, thank you so much. Or, hey, maybe it's your first time joining us here for the Sports Fix experience. If it is, thank you. Whether you're joining us on TuneIn and TuneIn's radio app worldwide, on Spreaker, on Mixlr, their digital and mobile apps. Maybe you stream and enjoy the show live right off our home base, thesportsfix.net. All fantastic ways to listen live as live can be at noon each and every weekday Eastern time. Don't forget as well, bookmark that website, thesportsfix.net. It's a great backup on any technical problems. Sometimes Spreaker, Mixlr, TuneIn, sometimes their live feeds are sketchy. I'm not really, but you never know. I just have to put that disclaimer out there just in case it does happen. And you can always fall back on the home base, thesportsfix.net, and it's always streaming the show live at noon. When we go live, boom, it just automatically goes out over the website. It's amazing what technology can do nowadays, but bookmark it, thesportsfix.net as well. Thank you and welcome in all of you guys. I say it every day. Thousands of you guys listening on delay around the world. Digital delay on sites 24 hours a day, like iHeartRadio, the world's largest internet radio platform, on iTunes and Stitcher Radio, CarPlay, SoundCloud, all the places you guys do the thing. Download it, feed it, subscribe it, grab it, get it, listen to it, however you get your fix. Thank you so much for doing it. I tell you guys that all the time. It's you, it's me. Without you, it's just me, and that's pretty boring. So with us together, I think we make a nifty little combination here, and we create the Sports Fix. Who am I, by the way? I'm your host, the Big Daddy on the microphone, J-Rocc, Jerry Myers, and you are the voice of the Sports Fix, so use it. 216-539-7535 is the number to call, and a couple of clicks of the button, I'm going to open up those phone lines right off the bat. 216-539-7535. Can't get through or can't get to the phone, or you're listening to the show on your phone, as so many of you guys do. Facebook and Twitter is where it's at. Facebook.com/thesportsfix. Hey, make sure you like the page while you're there. Join the nearly 20,000 fans of the Sports Fix on Facebook. Tweet with us on Twitter at... I hate when I say that. I do it every once in a while. It's a Freudian slip. Where else are you going to tweet with me except on Twitter? Like, anytime I hear people do that on TV and the radio, it's a little thing that catches me, because I'm like, where else would they tweet us? You know, like us on Facebook. Well, if you want me to, I guess you could I want you to like me somewhere else, but then I've got self-esteem issues. You know, I mean, there's only certain places to do that. But even the like is one thing. Tweet. Where else in the world are you going to tweet somebody besides Twitter? So, anyways, at the Sports Fix CLE is the place to do it. Twitter at the Sports Fix CLE, and of course, you guys can email us day or night. thesportsfix@aol.com, facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at the Sports Fix CLE. Email us thesportsfix@aol.com. Mike Brandenberry, as I said, from didthetribewinlastnight.com. Mike's going to join me just about 10-15 minutes from now or so. We're going to start talking some Indians. We're down to it. Mike and I, final conversation today before we hit opening day. Can't wait, man. We'll get to, I want to see where Mike's at here as we're weighing in on the final stuff. Final roster spots as well. One more name out of the mix there, Jerry Sands. Yesterday, Dan Wismar and I were throwing some our, kind of guesses and looking ahead to what may happen with this final roster spot for the Tribe. And he was one that was in there. We were thinking, okay, well, maybe this guy's played himself into the equation. Apparently not. Terry Francona let him know he also won't be breaking camp with the Major League team along with Tyler Holt. Tyler Holt kind of surprises me here, because now, you're down to 3 guys. You're down to Austin Adams, if you're going to go with a pitcher. But as we were laying out the case yesterday, isn't that spot kind of taken right now? Maybe not. Maybe they're going to go heavy there, but the bullpen's kind of in place there, the way it looks. So I don't know. Maybe they go with the extra pitcher. Otherwise, you're looking at Martinez and Aguilar, which was funny because yesterday when Dan and I were talking about it, it was it was Holt and Sands, and then who are the other guys? And there they are, still in the mix. And my gut man, as much as my gut is telling me it's Aguilar, the versatility perhaps with Martinez. Francona's talked very highly of him throughout the spring. Perhaps there's that could be it. I don't know. I know with a glut of guys that are kind of stuck in that outfield DH position. We mentioned that before going into the season. Maybe they feel they absolutely have to have a little bit more versatility at the expense. I know offensively some people point to that with Martinez, but I like Aguilar too. Of course, he's a homegrown guy. I'd like to see him come up there and do his thing. But thoughts from you guys is what I'm looking for. I'm going to get Mike's thoughts on this here, but that's pretty much it as far as who's going to get that final roster spot for the Indians. All the other decisions are locked up and taken care of. Speaking of things, by the way, starting to take care of themselves, we've been talking about the pitching. And, one of the things we were looking at was this week how guys are gonna be, it's hard. It's so hard to judge anything in spring training with any kind of merit, because as we've all talked about, all the different guys on the show and myself, there's so many different variables, so many things that it's just practically impossible unless you know every single situation, literally pitch by pitch, what they were doing, who was doing it, why they were doing it. It's impossible. But you know what I mean? Like, it's just absolutely impossible. But, the starting pitching, there's certain things you can look for. We've been laying that out, what we kind of each individually look for. But with Trevor Bauer, experimentation, that's his spring training thing. We know that's kind of his deal, working on himself. He's very inclined and in tune with himself and tweaking his differently mentally than a lot of pitchers even get with themselves. And pitchers are a finicky type to begin with when it comes to all of their machinations and their movements and their routines and all of that stuff. But so it's really hard to look at what Trevor Bauer's doing in the spring. We all talked about how this week, okay, Mickey Callaway said, let's go out there and see what you're doing. And matter of fact, my man Bruce, he sent me a message off the air when Bauer gave up the home run yesterday. He goes, another home run by Bauer. But that's it. Other than that, I thought Bauer looked pretty good. And I'll tell you what, I get it. Like, I know that I can't lie. Trevor Bauer still gives me some pause as well when I look at the overall body. I mean, he's got so much. I mean, that's that mouth-watering potential when you watch that there, man. I mean, seriously. But getting to that consistent level, that's the trick. As we've seen, some guys just rise, like Corey Kluber's had a pretty steady rise. It's very quick, but it's been a pretty steady rise up. Some guys, Danny Salazar, have a quick rise up, then boom, a big step back because they rose up so fast and then they weren't ready to sustain at that level, and they have to go back down and build back up. Carlos Carrasco is an absolute perfect example. Well, no, actually, he's a different example. He's one that just took forever to really develop, but he always showed you those things along the way. Bauer could be a lot like that too, man. I mean, we live in such a immediate now, got to have results now world, and the lack of patience is amazing in this world now. And you would think when you see cases like Carlos Carrasco, and look, we all get into it, man. I was, a few years into it, you're down at the end on Carlos Carrasco too. It becomes a guy that you just say things like, well, if he could only put it all together. But when you say that, a couple, 2-3 years in a row, all of a sudden you start to go, well, it's not going to come together. Is it just all potential? Because at some point, potential has to buy breakfast, and potential doesn't buy breakfast. What you cash that potential into is what actually is tangible and buys breakfast, if you know what I'm saying. So Trevor Bauer, same thing, man. He is so... The pieces are all there for him to be something. But anyways, Bruce, he's been that's been one of his guys that he's really pointed out all spring is, man, I'm worried about this guy. I'm worried about this guy. I'm worried about this guy. I don't know. Where are you guys at? I'm going to ask Mike here in a minute when we get him in here on Trevor Bauer. But, yesterday went out there 4-1 Indians. Again, scores are what they are here in spring training, but the Indians got the victory. Bauer gave up the one home run in, 6 and a third innings yesterday. Bauer gave up the run, a home run on 4 hits, 7 strikeouts. First walk of the spring, too, for Bauer as well there. He gave up that solo home run to Tyler Flowers in the third, and that was it. Really buckled it down, and I'm liking it, man. I'm really interested to watch Trevor Bauer. I got a feeling it's going to be frustrating at times watching him this season because he strikes me as a guy who's not there, but he's getting there to where you're going to go, oh, man, if he could just do that, string that together, 4 or 5 starts in a row. I still see him as a guy who's going to get hit from time to time, but, man, I think he's right on the cusp. Let's see how his development goes. But I did like to see how he jumped out there yesterday, how he responded to giving up the home run, and the Indians responded, by the way, as Zimmer had the home run yesterday. Jerry Sands, the aforementioned Jerry Sands, he hit a home run as well, knocked one out of the park. Indians, all of their runs yesterday came from the home run, and 4 guys in the bullpen that are looking to help the Indians here this season at the major league level. Scoreless innings from Zipchinski and Swarzak and Hagedorn and Atchison yesterday to end that one as well. And you like to see, again, forget the records and the stats and all of that, but this is the week you just like to see little things that march their way towards the opening, which is, by the way, six glorious days away. That's it. We are so there, baby. We have gotten through Hot Stove League, and we do the best we can to make that fun. We've gotten through, reporting day and counted down to that. And then the first spring training game, and now we're just about to play some baseball, and it is a beautiful, beautiful thing. Speaking of beautiful, hey, if you're into, I don't know if it's on TV anywhere, but, it'll be on the MLB.com. Yeah, Hernandez, King Felix tonight going up against this afternoon, against the Tribe in one of the final spring games. Bruce Chen, and this is going to be an important look for him, too. Let's see how he looks heading in, of course, going to start the season at AAA, but he's getting himself ready, too, because, you got to figure that at some point early on, Chen could at least come through in a start or two, or at least get that chance for the Indians. Chen and Hernandez today. We'll talk some more about that in a little bit, man. Looking ahead, I know I've got to get the break in. I've got to get Mike Brandenberry in soon and get this show rolling. After Mike, we've got Dr. Football in the house. Bill Chickus, he's with us every Tuesday. We'll talk to Bill, get his thoughts on the latest, talk about the Browns. You got, of course, Texgate went down, and the Browns, I think the NFL did the Browns a favor by not consequencing the entire organization when they're having enough trouble getting out of the rabbit hole as it is. But we'll talk about that. We'll look ahead, maybe talk a little draft. That's his gimmick, Dr. Football. Let's get this show rolling. Mike Brandenberry from DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com. He's coming up next. We're going to pick up right where we left off. We'll talk some Indians here with Mike Brandenberry. Talk some Cavaliers as well. Of course, Mike, we have some good conversations here every week. Usually he's with us on Thursdays. He's here today because we're not going to be here on Thursday. So let's get the break. As soon as I punch this bad boy up, we'll get into it. We'll get Mike Brandenberry in, and we will keep this bad boy rolling. Thank you guys for joining us. Of course, you can keep it going on Facebook and Twitter. Phones will be busy with Mike Brandenberry. You keep it blowing up on social media. Facebook.com/TheSportsFix. Tweet with us at TheSportsFix CLE. Email us, TheSportsFix at AOL.com, Facebook.com/TheSportsFix. Tweet with us at TheSportsFix CLE. Email us, TheSportsFix at AOL.com. As my man Big Bob says there on Facebook, it all starts with pitching for the young Indians. All right, another summer of that getting started already. Love it, Big Bob up in Bristol. Let's take a break and let's get Big Mike from DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com in on the conversation and talk some Indians baseball and Cavs hoops and hey, whatever, man. Mike Brandenberry's the man, and we're going to talk about all kinds of stuff with him coming up next. Dr. Football still to come and so much more. Don't go anywhere. We've just begun to... Oh, let me get that word out of my mouth. We've just begun today's edition of the Sports Fix.
The Sports Fix, the show that asks the question,
what you talking about, Lou? What you talking about, Lou? What you talking about? What you talking about? What you talking about, Lou? What you talking about? What you talking about, Lou? What you talking about? What you talking about, Lou?
We'll be right back.
Hey guys, before we go to the break, I want to talk to you a little bit again about our good friends at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championships, some of the hottest fights in the world today. Each and every one of their huge events, Harry Buffalo is one of the few places in Northeast Ohio you can go there and watch each and every UFC fight at the Harry Buffalo. And let me tell you, I've been there. The people are out the door. They are to the rafters. It is one of the craziest environments for some UFC fights. Wing Mondays, they've got great deals on wings and drinks, and every day of the week there's a different special, a different deal. And don't forget the Bison Burger, the unbelievable. It is the combination of a fantastic burger and eating healthy combined into one unbelievable sandwich. You have got to get a Bison Burger while you're there. So whatever you're looking for, whatever day of the week, Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sundays, there's something for you at the Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, just outside Great Northern Mall. Check them out today. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
Sports Fix listeners, like us on Facebook today. Facebook.com/TheSportsFix.
I'm Little Teapot, short and stout.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
No, Dad, like this. When I get all steamed up, then I shout, tip me over and
pour me out. This is WWE superstar Roman Reigns. The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize. I mean, a really real prize. Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs. There's literally only one place to go. FantasyJocks.com. No football? No problem at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted. The excitement never stops. Every day of the week brings a different set of food and amazing drink specials. Fight fans, Harry Buffalo North Olmsted is the home for every UFC pay-per-view live on the big screens. And let's not forget their mouth-watering trademark, the Bison Burger. Nobody does bison like Harry Buffalo. The perfect combination of healthy and delicious. What are you waiting for? Get to Harry Buffalo, just outside Great Northern Mall today. Harry Buffalo. Join the herd.
Hello, Cleveland. This is WWE Hall of Famer Mick Foley, and you are listening to the Sports Fix. Yeah!
Indian fever, it's catching fire with everyone. Indian fever, you can be part of the fun.
Look, I'm not gonna lie, man. I get it all year round. Maybe you go, okay, I'm not feeling the fever. If it hadn't caught fire with you this week, get out of my face, man. I don't know if we've got anything to talk about, man, because we're 6 days away, baby, from opening day and another baseball season. I just love opening day. I mean, I love baseball, of course, but opening day, one of those national pastimes, if you will, man, and having some fun, man. Looking forward to it. Of course, home opener coming up. Looking forward to going to that one. But opening day, just 6 days away, Indians fans. And last couple of spring training games to go. And they're not meaningless, as we were just talking about. Still a roster spot left to be decided. Still some guys getting themselves kind of humming here as we head into opening day. There's still stuff to be done. This is an important week, even though for guys like us, and hell, for most of those players, it's the toughest because you don't want to get hurt. You don't want anything to go wrong. You just want to, as Mike Brandenberry, who's going to join us next, would say, you just want to wrap it all in bubble wrap and go ahead and fast forward to next Monday. Let's talk about all that, guys. You keep the conversation going. Who's winning that 25th spot on the roster? Facebook.com/TheSportsFix. Tweet with us at TheSportsFix CLE. Email us, TheSportsFix@AOL.com. And I'm kind of scratching my head at it too, because I think Mike had it pegged. I mean, his man Tyler Holt looked like the no-brainer to me until Monday when they said, no, Tyler Holt, you're not going to start with the big league team. So let's jump in on that. Mike Brandenberry, he's with us on Thursdays from DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com, but we're not going to be here on Thursday. So Mike's here today. Mike, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing good, Jerry. I often dream of, if you and I just did a show of our own, what it would be like. And I kind of feel like we're test running that. 2 out of 3 days, your last 3 shows, I've made an appearance. So, I don't know if that's good or bad for your ratings and your listeners, but,
Hey, are we talking Indians? Then
we are.
It's not great for the ratings, but it's fun for me, and I don't care because
most of the sports talk that I listen to tells me that no one wants to talk Indians. That's I've been conditioned and programmed to know as a Clevelander.
Well, I'm telling you, man. I can't admit. Listen. I've talked about this a little bit on the show before. I mean, I know my thoughts and your thoughts, and we talk all the time, and you guys that listen about our thoughts on sports talk radio and the amount of time that's spent on this, that, and the other thing in the content. But here is what I try to tell fans, and this is because I sit on the content provider side of things. I've done it on the radio side, and now I'm doing it, which is still the radio side, but I'm independent. So I actually get even better numbers than when we were on the radio. And I gotta tell you, this is what drives me nuts about this town, is that while it's completely true, everything that people say about the skewed coverage and all of that, the reason that those program directors do it and the reason that they can get away with it is because, as much as the fans will tell you that they want to talk Indians and nobody talks Indians and nobody talks Cavs and everybody talks Browns and then blah, 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 and I hate it. It drives me crazy. but the numbers back it up at those stations. Honestly, when they start going into heavy rotation Indians talk, they watch their numbers plummet. So it's a catch-22 that I can't make sense of either, because everybody tells you that they want a well-rounded sports talk atmosphere, and they make it sound like it's just the bad radio programmers that shove football talk down your throat 24/7. Part of that is true. It's lazy, lowest common denominator programming, because it's easier to give people what they want in masses than to change the taste, because I believe that it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Yes, the ratings support that more people want to talk football, but it's because you don't give the time and the importance to the other things. I believe you can educate your audience to anything, and if you stick with it long enough, then you can change that. But I do have to stick up to the fact that, and many times, and I see it firsthand, the shows where we don't do nothing but talk Indians the whole show, they'll do half as many listeners as a show where we argued about who the stupid quarterback was for the Cleveland Browns.
Well, I'd just like to thank half your listeners then for continuing to listen while I'm on the show.
But you know what I'm saying? Do you understand what I'm saying? Because it's not
I completely understand what you're saying, Jerry.
I don't get it. Help me understand it, because I don't understand it, man.
I think it's twofold, and I think the first one you touched on is, you can. I used to jokingly say there were two topics you could always toss out and get a million calls on any radio show. And the first is Brown's quarterback, and the second one used to be, is LeBron going to ever come back? And you can fill a show. I mean, if you were just abducted by aliens and dropped off in Cleveland, and someone said, "Here's a microphone, you have to talk for X amount of hours," if you rolled out either one of those two,
it's
topics,
the go-to.
you can survive for years, okay? And so I think that is part of it, and I think the answer is why those two topics carry is because obviously I think those are the two topics that people care or cared about the most. I mean, it doesn't matter who you are, you have a opinion on the Browns and their quarterback dumpster fire, and you always have a opinion on LeBron. I mean, that's still true. So I think those are constants, and I think maybe the bigger and greater problem is, whether we want to admit it or not, this has never been a baseball town. This has not been a baseball town since 1950-something, pick a point there. And it really never has been. And the 90s really don't count for all the perfect storm reasons. I mean, saying the 90s was a baseball town is like saying you're a country music fan if you have a car that only gets in one radio station and it happens to be country music. Well, you're going to watch or listen to something. You need some kind of sports in your life if you're a sports fan. Fact of the matter, if you took me to Oklahoma, I would probably become interested in the Thunder over time and rodeos because that's what's there, and so I think, like you said, I do think in some ways it kind of feeds the beast, but I think this in a lot of ways has never really truly been a baseball town, and I don't think that that's the end of the world. I mean, there are towns that are baseball towns. This is a football town. I mean, this is in a lot of ways, this area of the country is where the game really was invented and took flight. So, I mean, I don't think it's the end of the world. It's always my running joke because talking about Brown's quarterback is like my idea of like cruel and unusual punishment. I mean, if I ever find myself, trapped on an island, I assume that that's what will be used against me to get me to give up some kind of secret that I have to the opposition. And they'll just start asking me my thoughts on Josh McCown and Thad Lewis and Johnny Manziel and whether they're going to trade up for Marcus Mariota and things like that. That's what will get me to tell ISIS any secrets that I have. I'll spill and just to make it stop. But I know I'm the exception for sure.
It's like Chinese water torture is Brown's quarterback torture. That's
absolutely. Start asking me my thoughts on, Brian Hoyer and Brandon Whedon and Jason Campbell, and my head starts hurting. I start to lose vision.
think, you know what though? I think that's what's happened to all of us here in Cleveland, and I mean over a 40-year period. Chinese water torture. For those of you that don't know what that is, it's where they strap you down and they literally drip a drop of water on your forehead at a maybe 20, 30-second interval, and it's just one little drop of water over and over a period of hours and days that eventually drives the person crazy. They start to feel that drop of water is boring a hole into their forehead, and it will drive you insane. It really does. It's years of torture. But anyways, that's what we've gone through, I think they've dropped the word quarterback so many times and bad football terms and all of that so many times that it's bored a hole into all of our foreheads when really it's just water, guys. If we just shook it off, we would have been fine.
Yeah, and I know it's your show, and you normally do the segues. You lead and I follow, but I think this is the perfect segue, talking about the depth at Browns quarterback going to the Indians and their 25th man. We'll use this in quotes, competition, because I think it's very much the same. Where it's a bit torturous, I would say.
My man, Mike.
There are no good options.
I hear you. We're gonna get into that in a minute. And I just thought it was funny that we went off in that, because I have that conversation that we were just having with people all the time. Because I go, guys, listen, I love baseball, and I don't care. I do not program this show, and this is to our detriment, but I think it's to the fans plus. I do not program our show based on how many people I think are going to listen each day, or I know I'm supposed to, and I do keep an eye on the big picture, but I will never say, you know what, we're not talking baseball today because I need 8,000 more people to listen, or we're not talking about this today because then I'm going to only get half the audience. No. It's going to be what it's going to be, and I'll deal with it. But the numbers do show me it. But I just other stations don't, hey, man, we're not making that choice. We're going to stick with what everybody wants. And I get that from a business side. But it's always funny when guys hit me up and talk about that. That's the first thing I throw at them is, but when I do a show where all we're doing is talking tribe, man, I get hit up by people that go, J-Rocc, I love the show. Let me know when you're talking football. You know what I mean? And that's just, some people could care less. And so it's always funny, though, because it's not just awful radio, even though you guys are subjected to some awful radio here in Cleveland. So with that, let's segue into a baseball topic, like Mike said, and I was setting it up at the beginning of the show. Yesterday, Dan Wismar and I talked, and I didn't even know when Dan and I were talking, Mike, that Sands was out of the equation. Apparently, yesterday afternoon, he found out that he's going to go AAA, because Dan and I are like, okay, well, it's got to be, if they're either going to go pitching or it's going to be maybe Sands here, because they didn't go with Holt, who I thought was, you were right on, was the no-brainer to get that last spot. So now, what are they doing? Is it going to be Aguilar? Is it going to be Martinez? Or are they going with the pitcher? What do you think they're doing?
I'm gonna. Since you thought I was smart with Tyler Holt, let's see if I can one-up myself and be either the really smartest guy in the room or maybe the really dumbest guy in the room, because I think the answer is option D, is none of the above, and I'll tell you why. Okay. And then maybe after that we can go into why I think this.
We have Francona mentioned they may make a waiver claim too. He mentioned that there's.
And that's exactly what I think is going to happen, Jerry. I think, from where I'm standing, I think if they don't make a waiver claim, I think their 25th guy is Austin Adams. Terry Francona, just basing things on the past and things that he said in previous seasons. I think he likes to start the year. I mean, he likes his big bullpens. There's no doubt about that. There are things that Terry Francona likes: scooters and big bullpens. And so I think, we've been down this road before. And I think, we talked about last week, there are some concerns from the right side. And so maybe keeping an extra right-handed reliever early is not a bad thing. Something that Terry Francona has said in previous years also that kind of leads me to think that that's the route, is that he talks about with off days, and there are some some extra off days, usually in April, and God knows that weather in April in the Midwest is not exactly conducive to great baseball too. So not that you can always bank on a rain out, but let's be honest, there's probably one coming in the next 30 days. When you factor all of that in, I think it's easier, and he's talked about this at times, I think it's easier to maybe play with one less position player than you might be comfortable with in June and July, because guys don't need as many off days because they're already scheduled in for them. So I think if there isn't any kind of outside of the organization move made, I think Austin Adams is your guy. Now, the reason that I started by saying I think the answer is option B is kind of because currently Austin Adams is your guy. And so I think what they're doing is trying and waiting as teams make their roster decisions. If I'm throwing my dollar on the table as to where I'm betting or who the 25th guy is, I don't know his name, but I know that he's in someone else's camp right now. He's out of options, and he's probably a right-handed reliever, would be my guess. And when he doesn't make that team's roster, the Indians will either claim him or will, and I use it in air quotes again, trade for him, because it will be for like cash considerations or basically room and lodging to obtain him. So that's really the route that I think they're going, because I don't think that they're all that sold on Austin Adams, which really kind of leads me to my overall opinions of kind of the building of this roster, which is meh, I guess, if I was going to put it in one word. I don't think there's reason to push any kind of panic buttons because of the 25 guys that are selected to be active on the first day of the year. But I think as this roster is put together and you look at spring training as a whole, I'm not sure that this is exactly the way they had things scripted. And I think many small things have gone wrong in the last 6 weeks to lead us to a conversation of Austin Adams, Michael Martinez, Jesus Aguilar, or claiming a guy off of waivers for your 25th man.
I'll tell you what, man, Mike, bring in the full cup of optimism here to the sports. No, I get you, though. No, I get you. No, I'm with you. I'm with you on that, man, because I'm a little scratching my head at the bottom of this, too, which ties into something else. And Dan and I were pitching this around yesterday. I was waiting to get you on the show to join in. Is that long awaited, at least from you and I and Dan as well, is that move, that trade, that outfield conundrum? Does something happen this week there? Does David Murphy get moved? Does something else happen to change the makeup of the roster before opening day?
I think it's possible, but I don't think it's probable right now, Jerry. I don't think it's very probable, because I think they're content in the short term to go basically with like a DH platoon of Murphy and Rayburn while they wait for Swisher to get healthy. Okay, so I think in the short term they're content with what they have. Now, where I say it's still possible is I think they have some underlying roster issues that need to be solved and will be probably in the first half of this season. But I think some of those roster issues is currently, every team is setting their roster right now. And as the Indians are sitting and potentially waiting to see what's available out there to fill their roster spot, there's a whole bunch of other teams doing the exact same thing. And so when you talk about guys like Jerry Sands or another guy who's really kind of impressed, and Terry Francona's had nice things to say about in the last week, is Jeff Manship. When you start to talk about those guys, and I think Sean Markham to a degree falls into this too, they're not on the 40-man. And to get them on, obviously to get them onto the 25-man roster, you have to get them onto the 40-man first. And so you'd have to let someone go or put them through waivers. And right now is a tough time to do that, because if you put somebody out there on waivers, there's 29 other teams looking right at that guy and going, could we use him? And chances are, I think, this to me is where I say the Indians kind of have a catch-22, because I don't think there's very many guys on their 40-man roster that they're willing to risk at this point in the season. There are not guys that they're willing to let 29 other teams take a look at and say, can this guy help us? I don't think they want to expose very many of their players. But in the same breath, because of that, they also have a number of guys on their 40-man roster that they're not willing to put on their 25-man. I think if you filled them full of truth serum, I think they would probably admit to you that they'd probably rather have Jerry Sands on this team, or that they'd probably rather have Tyler Holt over Ryan Rayburn or David Murphy, but they've committed money to those guys. So I think in the short term, they're content to ride with David Murphy and Ryan Rayburn to fill a role. But I think if a trade presented itself, they could go a long way to maybe clearing up or creating an opening on that 40-man where they could get one of those guys on. I mean, if they created a situation like that, then they could move a Jerry Sands onto their 40-man or a Jeff Manship and maybe create themselves a little bit more flexibility for their 25-man roster. Because I think you'll see all of those guys eventually. And I mean, I think the biggest reason that Tyler Holt didn't make this team, I mean, we've talked about him quite a bit, in the role that he could play, and that role is still there and it's still necessary, I think. But I think the biggest reason that he doesn't make this team right now is the fact that he would be their sixth outfielder, and how much time is there for a sixth outfielder? And so I think all of those things are at play. So I mean, to answer your original question again, I don't think David Murphy or Ryan Rayburn get dealt anywhere in the next 6 days. But if it happens, I'll also tell you I don't think they're getting anything back for them either. Their reward will be the freedom of their contract and their roster spot, which might be a good acquisition for the greater good of the Cleveland Indians and their roster.
But Mike, okay, so let me jump right on there, because while the luxury is there now to put the conversation off that we started the whole spring with, and this has to break at some point. Whenever that point comes, Nick Swisher, obviously something will have to be done to address this roster at that point, because as you said, otherwise we're going to pile up a quarter of the 25-man roster as outfielder DH guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think from the probably, I was going to say the second they acquired Brandon Moss, but that in itself took like a week. So from the second you heard that the Indians were about to acquire Brandon Moss, we've all known that they have a surplus of outfielders, and I'll go on record right now and say, if we get to game 162 and somehow David Murphy, Ryan Rayburn, Michael Bourne, Michael Brantley, Brandon Moss, and Nick Swisher are all still here pulling paychecks from the Cleveland Indians, you can go ahead and color me shocked, because that's not going to happen.
It can't. There's no way.
No, right. I mean, they can't. I mean, they essentially really all play about the same position. Some of them have some first base options, but you're basically talking outfielders and DHs. And so something's going to have to give. And I agree with you. Something does have to give. The Indians are just delaying the inevitable for as long as they can. And right now,
it's like Giambi, It's like the Giambi. Yeah. Not trying to cut you off, but it's like, hey, we could buy us another couple of weeks here before we have to make that decision. And
I think right now, Jerry, the inevitable is that David Murphy is going to be the odd man out. And I think that's part of why they're trying to delay it for as long as they can, because they owe him $6 million. And that, no matter what the Indians will admit on the record, that's a tough pill for them to swallow, to eat his contract early in the year, and you just don't know how things play out. I'm not sure that David Murphy, I mean, in my opinion, I don't think he's any better or worse than Tyler Holt or Carlos Moncrief or any of those guys. The only thing David Murphy has is that he's holding the Indians ransom at $6 million, and those guys aren't. I mean, that's the best thing that he has going for him. But with that in mind, with his contract, I mean, the Indians are going to put that off as long as they can, and you don't know what happens between now and when Nick Swisher gets healthy. I mean, God forbid if they suffer another injury. I mean, he could survive who knows how long. I mean, never forget. I always remember this. Go back to 2012. On opening day, Aaron Cunningham came in as a defensive replacement, and people were like, that's the 25th guy on the team, and he's terrible. How long will he be here? Well, I think there were like 5 different times where tomorrow Aaron Cunningham was going to get DFA'd. And I'll tell you, he made it into August. Okay, that guy almost made it a whole year because he was 2 weeks from rosters expanding, and he would have made it an entire season. So, you know, do I think that David Murphy's going to be here on game 162? Absolutely not. But who knows? And let's put it this way. If he is, things have gone awry. Things have not gone very well for those people that are reading their Sports Illustrated and believing that the Indians are winning their first World Series since 1948.
There's still trouble afoot at the Circle K if that's the scenario that we're going into there, man. No, I hear you. And you've been pointing out that Murphy $6 million contract for at least a year now as going, listen, the Indians, this doesn't exist in their world. Like, you're either playing for the minimum or you're playing for Nick Swisher's contract. There is no this middle ground stuff here when you're the Cleveland Indians.
Look, man, if you want to hire me to run a small market baseball team, here's what I walk into any ownership group, and this is what I say. There are 4 kinds of players that we put on our team. 4. Our homegrown kids that play for the league minimum, our homegrown kids that we have known for X amount of years and we're willing to invest in long term, aging veterans that we can get on the cheap and hope to materialize into something, and veterans that we are willing to break the bank for 8 figures per season. And if you don't fit one of those 4 categories, then you shouldn't be on the roster.
I don't have a place for you.
I mean, the Indians, and I call him the $6 million man, and it's not a David Murphy term. I actually really started it when Casey Blake was here because I used to say, you know, at a certain point, there's no room for Casey Blake. He's moved out of the category of league minimum guy into $6 million man, and the thing is, most $6 million men can be replaced by one of your young guys making the league minimum. I mean, here we are talking about Carlos Moncrief and Tyler Holt probably being able to bring the same type of production to the Indians as David Murphy. And, you know, even if they only bring you 80%, they're doing it at a tenth of the cost. And, you know, how could that money have been utilized elsewhere? You know, where could that $6 million have been used, you know, to try and make this roster better than just a small incremental improvement in David Murphy? So it's always my theory is that the Indians and teams like the Indians, you have to avoid the $6 million man.
You're listening to the Sports Fix. I swear I just saw what's his name? Now it's Blake from the the show with the guy from the Fall
Guy. One of my other
Majors.
jokes too. Is that the $6 million man is not a hero; he's a villain.
Yes,
for baseball.
Lee Majors, baby. Yeah, we can rebuild him. We can make him bigger and stronger and faster if you got $6 million. But he's not that much bigger, stronger, and faster than what you've already got for $250,000. So. Anyways, but Mike Brandenberry from didthetribewinlastnight.com joining us here. Real quick, I want to ask you about the season here, but I just noticed that you're in the same world that I was in on Twitter for a while, man. Like, I've never mentioned this to you on the air, but didthetribewinlastnight.com is Mike Brandenberry on Twitter, much like the Sports Fix and Jerry were the same for the longest time. I eventually split off and did the other one just so I could separate a little bit, but every time I go to tag you, I'm like, man, how come Mike Brandenberry doesn't have his own Twitter account? Why are you the whole website? Isn't there like a whole bunch of you guys, man? How do you speak for everybody, man?
I don't speak for everyone. If you read our content on a regular basis,
I know.
I don't
have
speak
fun
for
with
everyone because
Yeah.
we print things that are, I think, well written that I completely disagree with. So
No, I know where you're coming from, man.
I know where you're going.
Yeah.
It's funny because when we started a Twitter account, which I guess is now my Twitter account, when we started it, it was a website Twitter account. And
yeah, same with ours.
As we picked up writers, everybody just kind of seemed to have their own. And over time, it just kind of became apparent that, the person who didn't have their own Twitter account was me. and I was the one that was running ours 97% of the time. So I just went ahead and assumed the extra 3% and put my name on it. And let's put it this way, when that Twitter account says something stupid, I'm the one that gets the email from anyone who seems to find it stupid. So 9 times out of 10, I'm the one that said something stupid anyway, so I'll put my name on it and just own it.
No, I was the same way forever. Especially because I didn't do social media before the Sports Fix, so I just kind of inherited all those, much like you. And as you said, when it first starts out, it's just the account for the show, and then you end up just using it by function because everybody else kind of has their own, and so it becomes yours. And then next thing I know, I'm like, man, people are like, boy, is it, so you have to have some delineation. But I went to tag it this morning, like right before the show, and I was like, Mike from Did the Tribe, and then I was like, oh yeah, they're the same. So there's no 2 separate tags here on this, and I was going to give you a hard time about that. But I knew it's exactly the same as us because it started with, oh, I guess we should make one of these because that's what all the new kids are doing or whatever, and then it ends up becoming yours, and then you just go, what the hell, yeah, the Sports Fix, yeah, that's me, man, whatever. But and now it really is me. But at the time there was a whole bunch of us. Now it really is me. I can't throw the buck off on anybody else. Like at least before I could go, no, man, there's like 8 of us. That could have been somebody else that did that. If you didn't like it, it wasn't me. Now it's like, yeah, I'm the only one, man. So I guess I got to claim responsibility. But let's talk about claiming responsibility for this season because you and I are not going to talk again before the games are real and there's already a couple in the books. So I got to get you down here. I know some people probably, aren't. I know you're not feeling the best confidence. You're still in a wait-and-see mode. Where are you at heading into opening day on this season for the Tribe? I mean, we've kind of talked about it a little bit along the way, but now we've seen some guys get hurt. We've seen how this roster is going to be made up for the most part. How are you feeling now, and what's your season outlook for the Tribe?
How much time do we have? Because I feel like I can do like I feel like I can do 30 seconds or 30 years on this.
You got as much time as you want, man.
I want to buy in, Jerry. As crazy as it sounds, I've read enough stories about the Indians and how much better they're going to be that I've sat and had conversations with myself and said, what is it that you're missing? Apparently everyone else in the world sees, and I think I said this one time, but I feel like this is the reverse of the 2007 season because God is my witness. Going into 2007, I told anybody that would listen to me and anybody that wouldn't listen to me that the Indians were going to be good. I still have buried somewhere. I was in Vegas in February before the season, and I bet the Indians, I had 15-1 for them to win the American League and 30-1 to win the World Series. And I was a game from cashing those tickets. So while I didn't win anything, I always felt justified in that I was the first one on that bandwagon that year, and I really did believe that that team was going to be as good as it was and should have been better. I feel like 2015, I feel like I'm on the opposite side of that mirror, because now the whole world seems to believe that the Indians are destined for greatness, and I don't see it. And I don't buy in that their defense is better. I mean, I guess it will be potentially slightly better, but I think we would all admit that it cost them a number of games last year, and I think we'll be having that conversation again. They've been 24th or worse in defense every year since 2008. So if you're a believer that Carlos Santana is suddenly going to make the first base position drastically better, and Jason Kipnis is now going to make them drastically better because he's healthy this year, and Jose Ramirez replaces Asdrubal Cabrera, and Michael Bourne is going to become the first 30-year-old to get faster than when he was in his 20s. If you believe all of that, I'm still telling you that that's going to be a small improvement. They're not playing defensively. They're not playing their way back to the middle. They're just playing their way from being one of the absolute worst teams defensively, which is where they were last year. So,
but you know what? Let me jump in real quick. We're just before, like, on that part of it. Isn't that it? Just I agree with you. And I kept going. I said, man, you guys, if you missed Mike a couple weeks ago, he pointed out that, you know, even if that's an outlier, they were still 24th or below through that whole run of years. But didn't we keep saying last year that if the defense was only abysmal instead of god-awful, if it was only just slightly below average instead of just absolutely miserable, that it would have been a different result? I know what you're saying, but I kind of wonder if that incremental improvement is still enough if the pitching's there. See, that's going to be it, because I think it's possible. I do think it's possible. You ain't hearing it. Mike's like, look, I'm not hearing it, man. Like, I know where you're coming from. I like Santana at first better than you. I do think, obviously, the shortstop change is the one tangible one that you can go, okay, there will be a legitimate difference there. But I hear you otherwise, man. I don't expect them to be a bunch of Brooks Robinsons out here this season.
I mean, I just think that the average person is just overvaluing or overemphasizing how much better they think this defense is going to be, because it's only going to be slightly better. Okay, they're not. I mean, I've had people say to me who I at least assume haven't looked at the numbers, and will say, you know, well, they don't have to be good, they just have to be average. And that's when I want to scream from the heavens. They haven't been average since 2008. They're not going to be average this year. Okay, they're going to be bad. It's just a debate of how bad are they going to be. And I do agree with you. I think if they're just marginally bad, if they're maybe only 24th or 25th in defense, do I think they can be better? Yes. I guess maybe as this spring has gone on, and I've tried to convince myself of those type of things, I will be I hope, and let me preface all of this with, I want to be wrong. I want to come on here in May or June and say I have a major announcement. I am on the Indians bandwagon, 95 wins or bust, baby. Who's coming with me? All right, I want to do that show. But if you're asking me what do I think is going to happen, this is what I think is going to happen. I don't think they're going to catch the ball. I think they're a average offense that's going to score 8 runs a lot of nights, and don't be surprised when they only score 1 or 2 the next night, because that's the offense that they were a year ago.
So you see that again? Sure. You don't see more consistent, because that was the next place I was going to go with you anyway. I see I'll tell you what, opposite from how the spring started, I feel better about the offense than I do about the pitching right now heading into the season, because I really feel
I agree.
This lineup,
I agree with you, and that was kind of my conclusion. Is
more consistent.
I guess, I do feel. I feel better about the offense, but I can still see where it's going to be streaky. I think you'll see a better year, certainly than what you got a year ago out of Jason Kipnis. I think you'll get you'll get a better year than what you got last year out of Michael Bourne. I don't think you're going to ever see Michael Bourne from the Atlanta days. I think you might get 2013 Michael Bourne, which was much better than 2014 Michael Bourne. So I think you'll have some improvements there. To me, I think this is a huge, all caps huge year for Lonnie Chisenhall, and where does this guy fit? Because, to go back to my $6 million man conversation, is Lonnie Chisenhall a guy who becomes, part of a future core that you sign long term, or does he become a guy who enters the arbitration zone and starts closing in on that $6 million price tag? And if he becomes just a guy who makes somewhere in that $4 to $8 million range, again, fast forward a year or 2 years from now, and if we're doing this show, I'm going to be saying he's not worth the money. He's the next David Murphy, and so I think this is a huge year for Lonnie Chisenhall, and I think he's a key factor because I think there's some room for him to grow. And if he does, or if he becomes more consistent, maybe that offense becomes a little bit more consistent. I think Gomes is a guy who can have a better year than he even had last year. I think in my mind, I look at a guy like Michael Brantley. Michael Brantley says all the right things and wants to get better and has got better every year. And I'm looking forward to, if Michael Brantley's 2015 is better than 2014, I'm really looking forward to watching that. And no disrespect to him, but I think it's unfair to expect that from him. And I think in some ways, you have to expect some regression from him. And if that happens, I think guys like Kipnis and Bourne and Jan Gomes can pick up some of that slack, and I certainly think that Moss makes their offense better too. So I agree with you. I do think that their offense is better, but I still think it's going to be streaky at times. And to, I guess, the conclusion of my diatribe where I really can't buy into the Indians is, I think the biggest thing that all of the national pundits are hanging their hat on the Indians about is their young pitching. And I don't think it's time to hammer the panic button yet, but you might want to familiarize yourself with where it's at, because things have not gone the way that they wanted in the first 6 weeks. One of those young guys that everyone is banking on is Danny Salazar, and he can't make this roster at this point. And I think Zach McAllister's had a nice spring, and I think we've seen the very best of Zach McAllister, and we've seen the very worst too. And I think what you'll get will be somewhere in the middle. I think the same for TJ House, and I think the two most important people on this entire roster, and I was listening to your opening, and everything you said about Trevor Bauer, I completely agree with. You watch that guy at times and you think he could walk on water, and you watch him other times and you wonder if this is his first day throwing a baseball. And he's got to put it all together. But to me, the two most important guys on this entire roster are Carlos Carrasco and Trevor Bauer. And I think almost everything that you said about Bauer in your opening, you can scratch his name out and write Carlos Carrasco in for the same thing, because I don't think anyone looking at the full picture, I don't know how you can consciously just assume that you're getting August and September Carlos Carrasco after the previous 3 years. So I think this team is full of question marks, and I guess to put the cherry on top.
Hold on, don't put the cherry on top just yet. Hold on, sit tight. Can you sit tight through a break?
Sure.
All right, let me get this break out of the way real quick. Let's come back. Let's get now you've laid all this out here, and let's see what you've got as the big picture. Plus, I want to talk a little Cavs with you before you go. So let me get this break out of the way real quick, because we're right at the top of the hour, and we'll jump right back. Mike Brandenberry did the TribeWinLastNight.com. What has he got on this win total? It sounds to me like he's looking at a 67, 68 win season. I don't know. We're going to have to talk a little. No, I'm just kidding. But we'll talk some more about that when we come back. Let's see. What's Mike seeing see for the season. Cavaliers hoops, baby. We are getting close. Man, we're close to opening day. We're close to playoff opening. Man, just close. Let's talk about it all after the news. When we come back, don't go anywhere. Mike's still here. We'll be right back. You're listening to the Sports Fix. Right back after the news.
We're born again. There's new grass on the field. Round and third and headed for home.
The Sports Fix, your choice for intelligent talk.
I'm expecting a very important delivery at the house, so could you please call me if it arrives? I'll give you my cell number. 401-555-1125.
440.
No, I was just repeating the 4. 1-4.
14.
Intelligent talk.
Okay, 1125.
1125. 155.
I'm not giving you quantities of the numbers. I'm giving you the numbers. 1125. Those are the last 4 numbers.
Oh, I see. 1125.
Yes. All right, now read the number back to me.
Let me get my pen.
The Sports Fix will be right back.
I'm Tyler Zeller, and you're listening to The Sports Fix.
Whether it's an oil change or a new set of tires, Quick Lane at Valley Ford Truck has you covered for your car care needs. They're your neighborhood quick service experts. They also offer a low price tire guarantee. Choose from 13 brands, and if you find the same tires at a lower price within 30 days, Quick Lane at Valley Ford will refund the difference. 5715 Canal Road, right under the 480 bridge in Valley View. Come see why life is better in the Quick Lane. QuickLane.com/Valley Ford Truck.
Business owners and professionals, do you want to take your business, your product, your team, your event to the next level? You want to advertise right here with the Sports Fix. Our listeners are among the most loyal listeners, terrestrial or internet. The Sports Fix universe is not only the radio show, but tens of thousands of fans on Facebook and Twitter. Email me, Jerry Myers, thesportsfix@AOL.com. That's thesportsfix@AOL.com. And let me help you swing for the fences and hit it out of the park right here on the Sports Fix.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Harry Buffalo. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
Good morning, I'm Bob Picozzi. Patriots owner Robert Kraft testified this morning that former New England tight end Aaron Hernandez told him 2 days after the June 17, 2013 murder of Odin Lloyd that he was not involved in the murder. The conversation took place in an office outside the weight room of the Patriots complex. Kraft was called to the stand by the prosecution this morning. Hernandez is on trial, charged with the murder of Lloyd. ESPN college basketball insider Jeff Goodman is reporting that former Texas coach Rick Barnes has reached an agreement on a deal to become the new coach at Tennessee. It's been 39 years since a men's college basketball team finished unbeaten. 38-0 Kentucky will meet Wisconsin Saturday in the semifinals of the Final Four. Badgers coach Bo Ryan says the Wildcats' depth is impressive.
What they've developed in the last 4.5 months is some pretty competitive drills, some pretty competitive practices and work, to where not only were they good in November, but they're even better now.
UConn has reached the women's Final Four a record 8th consecutive time. The Huskies overcame a 1-point halftime deficit last night to beat Dayton 91-70 in the Albany Region Final.
It's the 2015 Dick's Sporting Goods Golf-a-thon event, now through April 18th. Great deals on the hottest golf equipment and apparel. Get to Dick's now or shop online at Dicks.com. Every season starts at Dick's.
You're listening to The Sports Fix.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix Live. Man, that music playing just reminded me I should have changed the music bed out there. J-Rocc back with you as we get back into hour 2 of the show. I was talking to my man, Dr. Football, here during the break. Unfortunately, Bill not going to be able to join us today. He's got some considerable issues going on right now. Keep Dr. Football in your prayers, absolutely, you guys. I've told you guys a few weeks ago about that as well. Dr. Football not going to be with us today, dealing with some issues. Definitely sorry to hear about that, and sorry for those of you guys that tuned in to hear him. He's always here Tuesdays at 1 o'clock on The Fix. He'll hopefully, knock on wood, man, he'll be back here next week. But just keep Dr. Football in your thoughts and prayers here during the next couple of days as well. I'm J-Rocc. This is the Sports Fix. Mike Brandenberry from DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com joining us on the hotline. He's been with us for most of the first hour. We're talking Indians baseball as we are on the cusp, 6 days away from the opener. And then there's no more games that don't count. There's no more saying, well, this doesn't matter, that doesn't matter. Now we replace those terms with, well, it's early in the season and there's a whole lot of season left to go. I think that usually you transition your cliches right around this time and start to hit the it's a long season stuff for the next couple of months. And then right around June, you switch into the, well, we're starting to get into that middle ground. Then you start running out of real estate and the cliches just go on. It's the great thing about sports. Great thing about this show is it never stops either. Mike Brandenberry on the hotline. You guys, Facebook and Twitter. Facebook.com/TheSportsFix. Tweet with us at TheSportsFixCLE. You can't call because Mike's already being all inconsiderate. He's got the phone lines jammed up. Mike Brandenberry from DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com. How you doing? You back with me?
I'm back with you.
All right. Welcome back into the show here. Rolling on and picking up where we left off there before we were looking at the season. And before you get into what you've got for the season, I know one of the things that you mentioned was Lonnie Chisenhall, and I wanted to go back to that real quick because I'm with you. I think it's a big season for him. I kind of see a beginning of the season, and then again, this is my fault for looking at the spring, and you shouldn't do that, but man, I can see the beginning of this season being the same for Lonnie Chisenhall. I think he hits the ground red hot. He stroked the ball. He's had a good eye in spring, again, for what it's worth. And he hit the ground running last year. And then, of course, it was the second half that brought him back down to earth. I think that's what I see, the similar beginning. And I guess to me the question is, does he maintain it or not? But I think he's going to hit the ground pretty hot to start the season again, much like he did last year.
Well, I hope so, because I think, like I said, I think he's a big key. I mean, he's the kind of guy, like I said, in my mind, this is a year that goes a long way to, is he a guy that's part of this organization for the future, or is he morphing his way into the next $6 million man? And, I think one of the keys for as pessimistic as I am, if you want the glass half full side, I think one of the Indians' big keys that they seem to always struggle with, but one of their big keys to this season is to get off to a good start as a team. And if Lonnie Chisenhall is hot, I think he's one of those key players. And when you got key players getting off the hot starts, that's usually what leads towards, your entire team getting off to a hot start. And so to me, in this season, This is a season that can go one of two ways, and the first way is I'm wrong and Sports Illustrated and the rest of the nation is correct, and they take off and they win 90 games and they win the division, and if they do, I would assume that Lonnie Chisenhall is a big part of that, and the other way is they struggle to catch the ball and they have untimely hitting and their starting pitching isn't near as good as the rest of the nation is giving them credit for as opening day comes. And if that happens, I think then as the season unfolds, you're going to see some turnover or some change because you're going to see the Francisco Lindors and maybe Giovanni Urshela's and eventually some other guys from AAA get their opportunity. So I don't know that's. I think those guys can be supplements to a good winning team, or they can be guys that are handed everyday roles because the guys in front of them that have struggled or failed.
And I'll tell you, you mentioned earlier you said 95 wins. Now that last one you said 90. Now we're dropping it lower, and you still sounded like you're not in that group either. Now I had them. I've got 89-90. That's my pick for the season, and I think that's going to be enough to win the division. I could be crazy about it, but I think it's going to be an ultra-competitive division. You can say best or worst. People can argue about that. But either way, it will be competitive, whether you think it's because they're all better or all worse than they were last year. But either way, where are you at then on the wins? Because, I mean, to me, 89-90 is not – that's not even a huge jump from last year to where I see that being too far out of the realm of how this should go.
I agree with you that I think 90 wins is the magic number to win the division. I have a hard time seeing 88 or 89 get it done, but 90, 91 I think gets it done. I think we all know there are 4 teams that as they break camp think that they're a division winner. You know, the only one that doesn't think that they're winning the division is the Twins.
The Twins,
and
yeah.
you know, and this has nothing to do with the Indians whatsoever. But usually when you have those divisions, and I think this is true in nearly any sport, when it's a wide open division, usually for the sake, let's just say this time for 4 teams, you know, I think there's one team that will overachieve more than what we expect today. There will be one team that grossly underachieves than maybe what we expect today, and there will be 2 that'll be somewhere in the middle. And personally, I think the Indians are one of those teams that are in the middle. I think because it's a little bit of a deeper division, I actually think on paper the Indians are improved from last year, but I think because it's a deeper division, I won't be surprised if their win total is almost exactly the same or even a little less. I think the Indians are about an 85 win team again. And I think the White Sox are right there. If you want my overachieving team.
Oh, I do too. Yeah.
If it's possible, I think my overachieving team is the Detroit Tigers, because a lot of people think that they're going to come back to the pack, and I hate to say this, but you know, they're the team that if all things are even, I mean, if it's June or July and this division's running 3 or 4 teams wide and everybody thinks they're in it, I mean, close your eyes and tell me that you don't see the Tigers making a bold move to try and win the division.
It's what they do. It's what they do. And they're in that position to do that, and you know it. You know that.
Absolutely.
Like last year. Look what they did last year. You know, it didn't play out the way they wanted, but they went out and made that move, and everybody said, lock it up now, man. Look at what Detroit went out there and did.
Yeah, so I actually, new season, same course, I guess, in my mind, but I like the Tigers to win the division, maybe right around 90 games, and I think the team that grossly underachieves that people are overlooking is the Royals. Don't be surprised if they have a record as bad as the Twins. If they lost 90 games, I just won't be surprised.
You know what? I've been telling people the same thing, Mike. I'm not expecting them to drop off maybe that bad, but it's like, you know, we see it all the time. We've seen it with Indians teams in the past. I mean, very often. I mean, even you think back to the Browns, the Cardiac Kids. What did people say about that 1981 season? Everything that was blessed, everything that was touched by an angel in 1980, they were going the opposite way in 1981. They were losing the close games. They weren't getting the calls, the lucky breaks. Everything was going opposite way. Not in any way diminishing what the Royals did, but the way they did it, the way they got hot, the way they ran it through, the way they got fortunate that some of the decisions worked out the way they hoped they would. That doesn't happen again all the time. Maybe they will, but I'm with you. That's the one team in the division I expect a step back from for sure. And I think Chicago is going to flip-flop with them as far as I think it's going to be Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, the 3 teams that are really in the mix for the division. And I'm not trying to write off Kansas City. I know how close they came last year, but you got to think they're not going to catch all that the way it worked out last year. It's lightning in a bottle. You don't always catch it twice.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and I think one of the things that a lot of people are overlooking is, you know, they have a lot of young arms and a lot of power arms that they overused in October, and rightfully so. I mean,
they went all in.
Hopefully, hopefully I get it all wrong, and the Indians, you know, win 95 games and are the, you know, the best team in the American League, and we're, you know, fast forward to, you know, this day a year from now, and we're worried about, you know, if Carlos Carrasco was overused because he pitched Game 7 of the World Series. Okay, so I mean, hopefully that all happens. But I mean, I look at the Royals, and you know, they're putting a whole lot of stock in Yordano Ventura, and that guy was. I saw a stat not too long ago. He pitched 51% more innings last year than the year before. I mean, that is a considerable amount. The guys in their bullpen, you know, they talk about that three-headed monster that goes 7, 8, 9. You know, those guys are overused, and rightfully so. And just don't be surprised if they run into injury problems. And if they run into injury problems with key members like those guys of their pitching staff, it's going to go bad, and it's going to go bad fast. And in my mind, in a lot of ways, you know, the Indians and the Royals are the same in that, you know, I think they walk a fine line between 90 wins and 90 losses, and then maybe it only takes a couple injuries to key players. And unfortunately, those two teams play in a different game than the Tigers and maybe the White Sox even, because when they want to throw their money around, when they want to go over budget, they can do it pretty much whenever they want to. And for that reason, I guess, when all things are equal, as a lot of people think this division is going to be, I still kind of give the nod to the Tigers for that reason. And, you know, I'll be interested to see how the White Sox handle their season. I think they're improved. How much improved, I think time will tell. Some of their free agent signings I'm not all that impressed with, and other ones I think are pretty good. I like their acquisition of Milky Cabrera, but he's also starting to get a little old. Investing in 35-year-old Adam LaRoche, I think, is not the best move to spend a lot of money, and I'm not a big fan of ever spending a lot of money on a closer, because if you don't win the first 8 innings of the game, he's just a really expensive guy watching the 9th inning. So I'm never a big fan of that, and the White Sox did that. So just because you spend a lot of money doesn't mean that you're necessarily the team to beat. But I think the White Sox have definitely played their way into the conversation. I guess I'll be interested to see if they are in contention at the middle point of the year. Are they going to be willing to throw more money around to maybe go out and try and keep their team afloat for the second half of the year?
Mike Brandenberry did the TryWinLastNight.com. Who wins the Central Division here this year? Who do you got coming out with it?
I'll take the Detroit Tigers, and I think the Indians. If you want to put me down for a win total, you can write me down for the same 85 games that they won last year.
Same 85 as last year. We're just going chalk, man. No, I'm with you. I was curious where you were.
Just like my NCAA tournament bracket.
There it is,
3 of the 4
man.
Final Four teams, you know.
Going chalk, baby, and you would have got 3 of the 4 right. So you know you're doing better than me, man. And don't even get me started on that. But real quick, just last little thing on the Indians there. What do you feel? I like House and McAllister. I like both of those guys, man, in the rotation, and I think that, you know, maybe they balance off a little bit of the question marks and some of the other. I don't know. I like those guys. I really like TJ House, and I think in the middle of that lineup, he could break, or in the middle of that rotation, he could really break up, as we've mentioned before, those power arms. And I like him. I like he's economical in the way he goes through a game, man. And I like TJ House a lot, man. I'm looking for something interesting out of him this year.
Yeah, we'll see. TJ House, I think, you know, anytime you don't have that overpowering fastball anymore, I think there's reason to be nervous, because
it's tough. Yeah,
I think, you know, there's a fine line for TJ House between being a good, effective pitcher and finding yourself in the Josh Tomlin zone. And I think he's better than Josh Tomlin, you know. But I agree with you. I think if he hits his spots, and he's definitely a different look than Bauer, Carrasco, and Kluber. And I think, you know, the soft tossing lefty has been effective for a long, long time, and TJ House can be the next one. And I agree with you. I think Zach McAllister, I mean, if we want to make a list of guys that you know can really move the needle, and you know, move me. What's that?
I like him. I like Z-Man, man, you know.
I mean, I think as fans, we're guilty of this all the time. We're guilty of only remembering, you know, the last thing that happened. We remember August and September really well, okay? We remember that Jose Ramirez was really good in August and September. Nobody remembers last May when he came up and played a couple weeks for Jason Kipnis and was like 2 for 21. Okay, no one remembers that. Go look it up. It's really close to those numbers that I just through off the top of my head. But, nobody remembers those. And Zach McAllister is another guy that, we remember his struggles of the second half. No one remembers that he was the best pitcher the Indians had last April. That guy was like 3-1 and had an ERA south of 2, I believe, last April. And so, we've seen the worst of Zach McAllister, and we've seen him at his best too. And I think Zach McAllister is a guy that if he levels out, he can give the Indians, I think, a start every fifth day. I think he's capable, if healthy, of giving them 200 innings or something close to that, maybe 180 to 200. And he's capable of giving them, 10 to 12 wins. And I think if you get that out of your quote unquote fifth guy, out of spring training, I think that's the start to making me be wrong.
Man, I'll tell you, I'm not excited enough. We're talking Tribe. We're just a few days away. As we're talking, bam, get the email from the Indians with all the festivities for opening day, our version of opening day here in Cleveland next Friday. And man, now I'm just even more fired up, man. Gaylord Perry's going to throw out the first pitch. He is the first Cy Young winner for the Indians back in 72. And, of course, Corey Kluber, the latest last season. But Gaylord Perry going to throw out the first pitch. They're going to crack open the new park and all of that. Carlos Baerga is going to be out there greeting fans. It's going to be a lot of fun, man. Now I'm just even more fired up, man. I'm ready to go. Baseball, it's time. It can't get here soon enough for me, man. And you know what? That's not enough as it is out there on the corner of Carnegie and Ontario, but about 500 feet due north, or depending on which corner you want to stand on and look, man, they got some stuff going over there too. I know last weekend was, some people are all gloom and doom, like, oh no, what happened? What happened is it's the end of an 82-game season, and they can't get to the playoffs fast enough is what it is. But man, another interesting week. Cavs hoops, as we're now close. What are we, 8? Are they 8 games? Is it from the playoffs? I don't have the record in front of me. I believe it's
I think it is 8 games.
I don't have it in front of me, but ridiculous either way, man. Just get this last, like you like to say, bubble wrap it up and get to the playoffs already. But man, I'll tell you, man, it's excitement. It is excitement in general, and that's part of where my prognostication for 2 months from now could hopefully be right on target, at least for the city of Cleveland. I hope it is, because, man, multiply those feelings, those good feelings, by even more, and it could be bigger. But Cavs almost playoff time, man. Starting the season and then starting the playoff run, it doesn't get any better than that. Except for March Madness, but we're already through that. So now we're into the next good thing, baby.
Yeah, I'm ready to go. Every Friday in my classroom, I tell my students, have a good weekend and stay safe. And that's what I feel like telling the Cavs right now. 8 games to go. Have a good weekend. Let's, have some fun. Everybody get their work in and be ready to come back for the playoffs, charged and ready to go. And everybody just stay safe. Let's not anybody get hurt, and we'll all be ready to go. And I think some of their lethargic play lately is because of that. I think that's secretly their mentality, and I don't want to say they're bored, but that might be the right word. I think they're as anxious to get this playoff season going as the rest of us are.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, they have 7 games remaining, and looking at the standings,
even better.
Right,
the only thing better than 7 instead of 8 would be if it was 6.
I agree.
7.
And this is what I was pointing out yesterday. Right now, they sit with a 2.5 game lead over Chicago for that second seeding in the East. So 2.5 games. That means that if that stays where it is, 2 games from now, it'll be out of the equation, and then the Cavs will have locked up. So most likely, assuming they don't plummet down these last couple of games and switch with Chicago, once we get through this weekend, that will be out of the equation. So it will be all about determining who needs to rest and all of that, because I know David Blatt, it's important to him. Even if LeBron disagrees, he feels they have to get that number 2 seed, and I like it too. I mean, you might as well finish that part of the journey, finish as high as you can, but it won't matter. They won't have to play it out till the end, because most likely by this weekend that'll be out of the it'll be too late for Chicago to catch up, and then they'll have 4, maybe 5 games left to figure out who they want to rest and when.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think with a couple extra days off here, I think they're gonna rest and supposed to get a good practice in tomorrow, and I think you'll see them come out with a good effort on both Thursday and Sunday, and I think there's reason to have a good effort. Unfortunately, in my mind, it looks like they're destined for an opening round series with the Heat, and I think you want to flex your muscle a little bit at home to them, and don't give them any kind of crazy ideas of coming in here and stealing a home game or 2 from the Cavs in the playoffs, and then on Easter Sunday they have the Bulls, and I don't think there's ever been a number 2 seed clinching party before, but if the Cavs could have one, I think Sunday's your day, and you could pretty much put a bow on that, and then you kind of almost turn the last week of the season into the preseason all over again, and get some guys some nights off, and get some other guys a little bit more minutes than maybe what they're accustomed to, and get ready to go.
Absolutely, and that Miami is just, I've pointed to that all year. I still chuckle at that. I'm looking at the bottom of the standings in the East, and the final spot is up for grabs. And really don't lock Miami in there either, because they only have a 1.5 game advantage in either direction between 6 and 8, and so they could go either way. The thing with them, they've sat in that 7th spot playing 500 ball for the last couple weeks, because both of the teams around them haven't taken advantage of that either. Milwaukee, I don't know how Milwaukee, they've just been miserable in the last month, and they somehow just continue to float in that number 6 spot there. They're going to probably be the coldest team in the East heading into the playoffs, but Miami's probably locked into that spot, and I just think how ironic how these things work out, that's the team that the Cavs most likely are going to have a date in the first round of the playoffs with. When you look at it, I'm telling you, if you scripted it, that's the way it would turn out. So I know I'm not trying to say there's little green men making the NBA schedule, but that works out very well for storylines for TNT and Charles Barkley and Reggie Miller and all those guys to talk about, because Miami takes LeBron from Cleveland, wins the championships, has the run. LeBron leaves Miami, comes back to Cleveland, and then has to beat the team that he helped build to get through the first round of the playoffs. You'd almost think somebody wrote the script.
I'm never only OIC or only in Cleveland. I'm never woe is me guy, but it does seem like that is like one of the most Clevelandist things ever, to have to face the Miami Heat right out of the gate. But in the words of LeBron, nothing ever comes easy here, so I'm not surprised by it, and I honestly really do think that this is a championship caliber team, and yes. There's part of me that kind of feels and any championship in Cleveland will be awesome, no matter how it's earned. But if you're going to be the best, then you got to beat the best. And I prefer not to open with the Heat. But let's face it, if this is a championship contending team, then you're going to run right through the Heat anyways. And I'm fine with whatever cards are dealt to the Cavs. Let's get started, and let's start mowing through teams, because that's how it should be.
Absolutely, man. And it starts soon enough, and the fun will begin. I can't wait. It's going to be a lot of fun. As I said, it's just one leads into the other, and hopefully carries over into a fun, enjoyable, entire summer-long festivities down there downtown, and of course branching off from that. Mike Brandenberry from DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com. Long extended conversation today. I love it. As here we go, man. You and I, no more hot stove talks, no more preseason talks, no more nothing. It's full steam ahead with the 2015 baseball season from here.
It sounds good. As you said, coming back from the break, I'll have to get out a whole new page of cliches to use for the next couple months.
Right.
So I'll put together all of my spring training, take it with a grain of salt, cliches, and I'll get out. Well, it's early. It's still a small sample size, but.
Exactly. That's how it all goes. This is we are now in the small sample size, it's early time frame of talking about baseball. Every conversation will have those phrases in it at least a half a dozen times, guaranteed, for the next 3 months. Not just here, but anywhere that you hear it. It's cliche season is upon us. Man, I'm feeling good, man. Mike, I know you are too. Hey, while we're doing this whole wrapping up, talking about the season, who do you got coming out of the AL and the NL? Who's your World Series matchup this year?
Well, I'll tell you, and I almost touched on this in the Central when we were talking about the Central. I think the National League is way, way better as a whole than I do the American League this year. Okay. And I think, for me, this year, I think a team to really keep an eye on that will, I think is maybe some people's popular pick. I think really comes through this year is the Washington Nationals, and I think I like the Nationals a lot, but I like the Pirates, and I like the Cardinals, and I like the Dodgers and the Giants. I think I like all five.
You
of
like
those
everybody,
teams
man.
Over almost anybody in the American League. I think all five of those teams, could probably win a 7-game series against maybe the best of the American League. But I think the American League's wide open, and that's when when I have those long talks with myself about why not the Indians, is because it's wide open. And as crazy as it sounds, a team that I like, I think that could really surprise. Don't be surprised to see the Blue Jays surprise some people, but if you want my World Series pick, I actually really like the Boston Red Sox, and they're another team that I think when push comes to shove, they'll go out and make the moves that they need to solidify their team in July, and I think they have extra parts and pieces to do that right now if they want to. So I like a Red Sox and Nationals World Series.
I like the Indians. I don't care who likes it and who doesn't, and I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to go with the Pirates, man. I like Cleveland, Pittsburgh in the most uninteresting National World Series in Major League Baseball history. It'll be exciting as hell.
ESPN will love that World Series.
It'll be exciting as hell up the I-76
I can't wait
run.
To see a freezing cold Carl Ravitch live from
Could you
Three
imagine?
River Stadium, only to move to the shores of Lake Erie.
Yes, one day.
Sign me up.
There's pouring, freezing rain, and then we're going to switch to the locale.
7 games of all the
snow
sleet you can get in late October.
The coldest World Series in history, the dreariest World Series in history, and I will be loving every second of it. No, seriously, man. I mean, when you mentioned the Pirates, you hear I'm playing it in the background because I really was going to tell you that I've got the Pirates and the Tribe, baby, doing it in the World Series, man. And hey, man, look, I don't know. I don't think I
hope
can.
When the Browns schedule comes out, I hope they play the Steelers that week too. Let's just toss it all in there.
That
it would be good.
Great.
I like the Pirates. I think they're a good team, and I think they have as good a shot as anybody in the National League. Like I said, I like all 5 of those teams, and some of the surprise teams of the National League. I mean, I look at a team like the Marlins or even the Cubs. I think if they played in the American League, their record would be much better. I mean, the Cubs are hoping to go 500. Maybe some of you and your listeners will disagree with me, but I think if the Cubs were in the American League Central, I think they'd be right in that 4-team race with the other teams that we talk about.
I think they're improved for sure, man. How about Chris Bryant? We talk all that, your boy Lindor and all this talking we did for the last few weeks. Man, what is it, a dozen spring training home runs? I mean, it is the spring, but man, that's talk about making the argument. The kid's like, I disagree. I'm ready to play some ball, but do you think that's
that's a whole nother show. We spend a whole spring talking about pitch clocks and making baseball more interesting to young young people, and then we take, one of the new budding stars and send him to Iowa to start the season. How about instead of shaving 3 minutes off the game, we work on just getting the best players in the game on the field for opening day? Call me crazy. That might be a better idea to get young people interested in the game.
Call him crazy. Call him Mike Brandenberry from DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com. Mike, what do you guys, obviously, you got your season preview articles and all of that coming out this week?
Yep, we are kind of working on, we always work through the spring with, kind of a profile of each player and where they fit. And, of course, we hold the best for last. And, this week we'll talk about our profile today is on Cody Allen, but, Jan Gomes and Michael Brantley and Corey Kluber are all headed your way. And I think no matter what you think, whether you think the Indians are division winners or division pretenders, the Indians aren't getting to the promised land without those guys. So they're definitely the most important and key parts of their season, and we'll dive into all of that this week.
Make sure you guys bookmark it. DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com. Mike, enjoy your week. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy some Final Four hoops. And then next Monday, it's time to play. When you and I talk next week, we will be through the opening series of the season. And, man, we're going to be looking at the home opener, baby. I cannot wait.
Sounds good, my man. I will talk to you then.
You got it. Mike Brandenberry, DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com, with us here normally on Thursdays here on the Sports Fix. We're not here on Thursday or tomorrow, so Mike joined us today. Let's take a break, final break of the show. What a great conversation. Mike's always such a fun guy to have on the show. Indians fans got their fix today for sure. Where are you at with the Indians season? Facebook.com/TheSportsFix. Tweet with us at TheSportsFixCLE. Tweet me your predictions for the Indian season at TheSportsFixCLE. When we come back, final segment of the show. Monsters getting at it. Tribe getting at it. Cavs getting at it tomorrow and more. We'll get into that, wrap it up, and see you in a minute. Don't go anywhere. Right back with the final segment of the Sports Fix coming up next.
When it comes to Cleveland sports, we go from
"You can't touch this"
to
"I can't watch this."
So listen to The Fix. It's easier on the eyes.
Guys, want to take just a second as we head into this break and remind you about the official business printing source of the Sports Fix, our friends at Signs and Ship. Signs and Ship, I'm telling you, Chris and Pam, they've taken care of me since day one, and they can do the same for you. Whether you're a small business that's already been established and you're looking to grow to that next level and expand your business, or perhaps you've got an idea that you just know is going to be a great business and you need to figure out how to brand it and how to promote it and put it out there, Signs and Ship is the place for you. If you need a logo, they can create one for you. They have a fantastic graphic designer. Business cards, signs, banners, yard signs, mobile advertising, anything you can think of that you need to promote your business, they've got it at Signs and Ship. The best thing about them, too, is each of their locations, whether it's the home base here in Elyria, Ohio that I work with, or their spots in Virginia, Florida, and Pennsylvania, it's all local sourced. Very important to me because we all understand that small business is the lifeblood of the community. So check them out, signsandship.com, or call Chris and Pam today, 440-323-6060, the home office in Elyria, Ohio. Signs and Ship, quality printing at affordable prices.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Fantasy Jocks. Looking to upgrade your league trophy? Check out FantasyJocks.com for championship belts, rings, trophies, and more. Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. Real time spent making real decisions, creating real victory.
I'm the greatest man in the world!
And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize. I mean, a really real prize. Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs.
The trophy's 12 feet high, and it is glorious!
Football, baseball, hoops, you name it, they have it. Plus, they have awesome draft kits and party supplies to make all your preseason activities the envy of everyone. If your league needs a ring, belt, or trophy, or you want to upgrade what you already have, there's literally only one place to go. If you're going to be a fantasy jock, do it right.
It's mine, the most magnificent belt ever created, and it's mine.
With America's Fantasy Sports Superstore, FantasyJocks.com.
What's your fantasy?
Sports Fix listeners, like us on Facebook today. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix.
Hey, everybody. Listen up.
Listen up, guys.
Hey, guys. Listen up. No one should ever hit a woman.
Not their wife, not their girlfriend, not their date. No woman should have to fear violence.
Especially not from someone they know and trust.
But that's the reality for too many women.
We have to change it. It's up to each of us, because even one is too many.
Violence against women hurts all of us. Growing up, I was ashamed and afraid of my father when he abused my mom.
The worst abuse of power is when a man raises his hand to hurt a woman. We all have to take responsibility. So if you see someone threatening a woman, step up, speak out, and get help.
Dating violence hurts all of us. So step up and help end it. Because one is too many.
One is too many.
One is too many.
One is too many.
End the violence. Because it's wrong.
Because one is too many.
Hey, this is Antoine Jameson, and you listen to the Sports Fix.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix Live. Final segment, wrapping it up for the day. Actually, wrapping it up until the end of the week. Don't forget, guys, no live broadcast Wednesday, April 1st or Tuesday, April 2nd. We will be out of commission. We will be out of the studio. We will be back live and on the air Friday, talking about that Heat game. Of course, the Cavs and the Heat play Thursday. We'll be here with Eddie Jansen from More Than a Fan Cleveland on Friday, talking about that Cavs game. And hey, man, statements, not always do I agree with that, but hey, statements need to be made when you've got a game at the house against a team that you're about to play in the playoffs. You go out there and you let them know what they're getting ready to experience next week, and I expect that to happen. Eddie Jansen will be here talking about that. Jonathan Knight, sports writer extraordinaire, previewing the start of the Tribe season. Jeff Gorman back in the house as well, my man from Browns101.com, talking about the latest week that was. Hell, John McMullen from the Sports Network may join us on Friday as well, as we'll get everybody back in the house. Doug Plagans may be here. I mean, who knows? We may just have an 8-hour show on Friday. Doug Plagans, of course, voice of the Lake Erie Monsters. Monsters get back in action tonight at the Q. They've got 2 games in 2 days at the Q. These are very important games for the Monsters here, as they are on the cusp. They're sitting, 5 points back from the playoffs here. Even with points in their last few games, they actually lost a little bit of ground over the weekend. This is one that the Monsters cannot let slip away. In my opinion, you need to come out with all 4 potential points in this one here if you can. Monsters and the Admirals today and tomorrow, back-to-back here with Tuesday, Wednesday night clashes here at the Q. It is home game, right? Yeah, absolutely. I lost my train of thought there for a second. So, Monsters swept those back-to-back games over the weekend. Agazino had the hat trick. They've got themselves rolling a bit here. This is going to be very important point-wise. I mean, keep in mind, there are only 10 games left in the regular season here for the Monsters. Milwaukee, they've struggled in the last 10 games. They're 1-6-2-1, coming off of an overtime loss to Chicago last weekend. Monsters, as I said, 5 points back from 7th, 8th, and 9th place in the playoff race. Here is 3 teams, Chicago, Hamilton, Milwaukee, all tied there guess what? That's why this game is so much more important. Milwaukee is right there. The Monsters have a chance to pick up points on the team that they are directly chasing, and they can't let those slip by anymore. There's only 10 games left. So Doug Plagans will be with us at the end of the week, and we will see how this very crucial 2-game set at the Q went down with the Admirals. Milwaukee and the Monsters, 7 p.m. both nights, tip-offs here, or puck drops for the Monsters, Wednesday and Thursday night at the Q. Guys, I'll tell you what, Cavaliers couple of games off, Monsters getting themselves together. You know what, something else I wanted to touch on real quick before we get out of here, and I'm gonna put a call into Coach Gary Waters and try to see, but I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. Cleveland State has went ahead and allowed Trey Lewis to seek a transfer if he's interested to another school. Remember last year, Bryn Forbes was the leading scorer for the Vikings, and they allowed him to leave, and he's now sitting in the Final Four. Bryn Forbes, one of the guys helping run that Michigan State Spartans run into the Final Four currently in this season. Trey Lewis had an incredible season for the Vikings, his only season for the Vikes, as he transferred over from Penn State. He's a graduate senior, remember, a postgraduate senior. He is set to graduate, which means he will have 1 year of eligibility remaining. And because he's a post-grad senior, he won't have to sit the year. He could transfer somewhere if he wanted. So if there was an opportunity for him to go to, I'm just throwing names out there, to an Ohio State, to a Duke, to a big name school that would be interested in bringing him in for a season, he would be able to do that and play immediately instead of having to wait. However, the Vikings nothing's official. They made it clear that this is just basically them allowing Trey Lewis to get out there and test the waters and see. I mean, obviously, you have to do that, because otherwise you would give pause to future graduate or future committees who may say, hey, what if I change my mind? If you show that you're open and willing to let a guy go out and pursue whatever it is that he feels he needs to do, and then he comes back and stays, that's great. Or if he leaves, that hurts your team. But I think you're better off for letting the guy do it, because now other guys know, hey, if I get homesick, if something goes... Now, you don't want to let everybody just fly, but you also want people to know that they have that option, too. So, right now, nothing for sure, but coming off the heels of Bryn Forbes last year, Trey Lewis may also transfer out of Cleveland State here coming up. They have opened up the doors to allow that to happen. You guys heard it during the news break, the Robert Kraft testifying at the Aaron Hernandez trial today, that he had to ask him, pulled him out of a weight room while there's helicopters flying over his facilities, his $1 million facilities, and the FBI is looking for this guy. Well, it wasn't a manhunt, but it was just it was a media blitz. Pulls him out of the weight room and asks him if he killed the guy or not, you know. And yesterday, his fiance testifies the same thing, you know, and she was in the middle of testifying about how they had an agreement that allowed him to be unfaithful, and it was all these great things about their relationship. He had her remove a box but wouldn't tell her what was in it, and supposedly she removed this 40-pound box that smelled like weed, but she never bothered to look and see what was in it. And then she didn't remember what garbage dumpster she dumped it in, so the police could go track it down. Of course, everyone believes that it holds the gun that was committed, that was used to commit the murders, the murder here specifically that he's on trial for. And so, of course, that piece of evidence is missing. But she said the same thing yesterday, that she pulled him aside and asked him point blank if he did it. Listen, I know that you got to cover all your bases, but I'm just going to tell you, Robert Kraft, I'm just going to tell you, Aaron Hernandez's fiance, and all the rest of you out there listening, if you have to ask if this person that you love, live with, married to, whatever, your family member, this person that you trust, whatever it is, the relationship, if you even have to ask them if they murdered somebody, they did, and you know they did, because I can tell you for a fact that nobody that knows me has to ask me. And if you ask, I'm just saying, if you ask, that means you think I did. That means that you think the guy did, because otherwise, why do you even bother to ask? If somebody told you right now that, you know, J-Rocc has 3 eyes on his, you know, on his human face and it's hidden and he's actually an alien and whatever, would you would you ask me if that was true, or would you just chuckle? Of course, because you would go, yeah, whatever, man. I know that's true. If somebody told you, hey, Jerry murdered some guy last night, man, just blew him away in cold blood, I'm pretty sure, well, maybe those of you that don't know me would have to, yeah, hey, what happened? But I'm pretty sure anybody that knows me would be like, no, not the guy that I know. But anyways, so just a word of advice. If you have to ask your loved one if they committed a cold-blooded murder, you already believe that they did, and odds are that they probably had something to do with it. But I get a kick out of that. I asked him, and he told me no. He looked me right in my face and told me no. Well, if he's capable of murder, I'm pretty sure looking somebody in the eyes and lying is not out of the realm of possibilities here for his actions. Let's see, a couple other. Oh, yeah, I did want to talk on the way out the door here about the man who may win $1 million based on Michigan State. I just saw this story and thought it was amazing. Way back in December, 8 games into the college basketball season, the Michigan State Spartans were 5-3. They had just lost their 3rd game of the season to Notre Dame. They were 5-3. And 50-1 odds to win the NCAA National Championship in basketball on December the 5th. So this man, Derek Stevens, and I have no idea if he's an alumni or what it is, alumni is plural, what it is that led him to the Spartans for sure. Mr. Stevens said he's never committed a bet this big before, said he had bet $1,000 on an NFL game here. He actually went to Michigan. There we go. Now I got the details here. But said he roots for the Spartans. Anyways, for some reason, he got a gut feeling on December 5th to lay $20,000 on Michigan State, 50-1 to win the championship when they were 5-3 at that point in time to start the season. The manager of the Golden Nugget Hotel and Casino said in his 9 years running the sports book, he had never even accepted a bet that had that much liability for the casino, because a $20,000 bet at plus 5,000, 50-1 odds, that's a $1 million payoff. And the man said he had never even taken a bet that put the sports book in that much jeopardy before. And now, with them in the Final Four, the Golden Nugget is just absolutely panicking here, because they may have to make a $1 million payoff. The director said it would be a huge loss. They have days where they pay up to $30,000 out, but they've never had a payout close to $1 million at the Golden Nugget. So he's going to be there rooting on the game, and he's asking Spartans fans to help him root on as well. But, man, I'll tell you what, I hope I'm in the position where I can just drop 20 dimes on a basketball team to begin with, let alone a gut feeling back in December on a 5-3 team and drop $20K on them to win the championship. That's nuts, man. And we'll see if it works out for him. I don't think it does. I think Duke knocks him off, which means I just guaranteed that the opposite happens. All right, guys, man, we're about up to it. Tribe getting back at it here today, continuing to roll down the end of these spring training games. As we mentioned earlier, Bruce Chen taking the mound at 4 o'clock for the Indians. King Felix Hernandez, 2010 AL Cy Young Award-winning King Felix on the opposite side of the hill for the Mariners. As I said, 4 o'clock, 4:05 is the first pitch, and you can hear that game on MajorLeagueBaseball.com. Guys, we're going to get out of here for the remainder of the week until Friday, so don't forget to come back. We will be back here Friday, wrapping up the week. We've got a lot to get into, tons of people to join us. We'll talk Cavaliers. We've got a Final Four to preview. We've got a lot of things to do. Tribe, final roster spot will be set, so don't forget to come back Friday. No live Sports Fix on Wednesday or Thursday. We are out of the studio. We will be back on Friday live, getting you ready for the weekend. Eddie Jansen will be here. Jonathan Knight, the sports writer extraordinaire. Jeff Gorman from Browns101.com. We may get a visit from John McMullen and Doug Plagans as well. Who knows? You'll be surprised, as we all will, come Friday. So, guys, enjoy your week. Have some fun. Enjoy your Tribe. Enjoy your Cavaliers. All the things that are going on. And I look forward to rejoining you guys back in the saddle on Friday. Same bat time, same bat channel. You know the dealio. Live at noon right here Friday across the Sports Fix Radio Network. Guys, enjoy it all. Have fun. I'll see you at the end of the week. Hasta la vista, baby. But don't forget, I'll be back. See you on Friday, guys, when we return for the Sports Fix.
Survival's a must on these streets. We hustle, don't sleep. Out here in Cleveland, Cleveland, Cleveland.
Okay, now here we go. Welcome to the Cleveland show, but this ain't no cartoon. Reality is all we know. You're tuning in to Bravo. Yeah, you hear me everywhere, but it's only one of me. Let me make that very clear. Yeah, I'm from that terminal. You can see the lake from here. Faith in my teams, we keep getting closer every year. But we got the king, though, so hopefully we overcome. Yes, I have a dream, and I know I ain't the only one. Modell tried to steal my heart, but we brought it back. Thanks to Cleveland Clinic, now they call them Kiss the Cardiac. Rock Cars, Science Center, Tower City, all of that. Warehouse District, Euclid Corridor, and all the flat. You know that I'm a Tribes fan, and I love Slimans. Crockett Park's the perfect place for me to spend some time in. Baby, this is Cleveland. It is so much more to us. You can even go to Severance Hall to see an orchestra.
Hey. Cleveland, we rep our city.
Yeah.
Blue lights separate the grind from the gritty. We're sick fitted. Hood pass cover any city that we visit.